There are numerous different ways to the NHL. There's playing in Europe, there's obviously the NCAA, and of course there is the Canadian Hockey League, which produces the majority of NHL players. Today, I'm going to be starting a new series where I take a look at the best current NHL player from every team in the Canadian Hockey League. And of course, 3 different leagues make up the CHL. There's the WHL, the QMJHL, and of course the OHL, and that's the league we're going to be talking about in today's video. The rules are pretty simple. It has to be an active NHL player. Of course, they had to play for that OHL team, and I can't choose one player for 2 teams because some players did play for multiple teams in the OHL. And with that said, let's get right into talking about the best NHL player from every OHL team. And of course, if you guys are new and you want to see more NHL content like this, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let's jump right into the video. Beginning with the Barrie Colts, I'm giving it to Mark Scheifele of the Winnipeg Jets. There were some other good options like Pietrangelo, but I took him for a different team, so I couldn't pick him here. Ryan Strome had a good season, Aaron Ekblad, Andrei Svechnikov, but out of all those players, I definitely have to go with Scheifele. Scheifele is one of the most consistent players in the National Hockey League, always giving the Jets at or slightly above a point per game. In my opinion, he's definitely one of the top centers in the league. The spot for Erie has to be Connor McDavid. I shouldn't really have to explain myself here. The Otters have produced some really good NHL talent over the years, but right now in the NHL, Connor McDavid is the best of the best, and I think the only right choice here. The spot for Flint goes to Tyler Seguin. Now, they weren't actually called the Flint Firebirds when he played on the team. At the time, they were called the Plymouth Whalers, but since there wasn't really too many options to choose from for this franchise, I thought I'd go with Tyler Seguin. Seguin has had an amazing career, and while this season his point production has dropped in comparison to recent years, I still think he is one of the top 20 centers in the NHL. Moving on to Guelph, it's definitely Drew Doughty, who played 3 seasons for the Storm before being taken 2nd overall in 2008 by the Kings. The Storm have produced some other pretty solid NHL players. Guys like Tyler Bertuzzi, Robbie Fabry, and Dustin Brown are among some of the names that are currently active in the league, and while Drew Doughty hasn't had the greatest last couple of seasons, I'm not ready to say any of those guys are better than him. The Hamilton Bulldogs goes to Matt Luff. There weren't too many options here. The other names include Mason Marchment, Ben Gleason, and Caden Fulcher, so I guess this spot goes to Matt Luff, who has 16 points in 51 career NHL games. The Kingston Frontenacs goes to Philip Grubauer. There were a couple other good names, Mike Smith, Sam Bennett, Lawson Krause, but I think this spot definitely has to go to Grubauer, who over the past 2 seasons has really blossomed into a top tier starter in the NHL. A .916 save percentage this year, a .917 save percentage last year. That tandem of Francouz and Grubauer looks great for the Avs moving forward. The spot for Kitchener, in my opinion, goes to goaltender John Gibson, and while yes, he isn't really having the greatest year, that doesn't take away from the fact that every other full season of his NHL career, he has been one of the best goaltenders in the entire NHL. Some honorable mentions include Jeff Skinner, Gabe Landeskog, who I was actually close to choosing, Nazem Kadri, and also Mike Hoffman. Kitchener has produced some really good NHL players. The London Knights, one of the most storied franchises in the OHL, I'm giving it to Patrick Kane. I will name off some other good options as well, and there's a lot, so get ready. You have guys like Bo Horvat, Mitch Marner, Matt Tkachuk, John Carlson, John Tavares, Nazem Kadri played there for a little bit as well, Corey Perry and Max Domi as well. You guys get the point. They've produced a ton of really good NHL talent, but I'm not ready to say that any of those players are better than Patrick Kane, who has been one of the best NHL players over the past decade and still is one of the elite players in the league right now. Right now for Mississauga, it has to be defenseman Dylan DeMello for the Jets, who isn't a star but is a solid top 4 defenseman. But I definitely think this will be a new player as soon as next season, with guys like Nick Hague, Michael McLeod, Owen Tippett, and Alex Nylander all coming from the Steelheads. And if I had to guess, I think 2 or 3 of those guys will be full-time NHLers come next year. The Niagara Ice Dogs goes to Alex Pietrangelo. For me, it came down to him and Dougie Hamilton, and maybe if Hamilton hadn't gotten hurt this year, he would have had this spot because he was on pace to have a ridiculously good year, but Pietrangelo's having a really good year as well. A career-high 52 points in just 69 games, obviously really good in his own end, eats up a ton of minutes. He really is a beast, and it's going to be super interesting to see if he hits free agency this summer without a deal from the Blues, because there's going to be a lot of teams throwing a ton of money at him if he's on the open market. The North Bay Battalion goes to Barclay Goodrow. Not too many options here. Other players include Michael Amadio, Nick Paul, and Ben Thompson, but Goodrow is really the only proven NHL player out of all those guys. He is solid, he can be a physical presence in the bottom six and chip in some offense here and there, and apparently is worth a first round pick. The Oshawa Generals goes to John Tavares. They're another really storied franchise in the Ontario Hockey League, but among active players, this one really came down to Tavares, Boone Jenner, and Anthony Cirelli, and I don't really think there should be too much question that Tavares deserves this spot. He is a beast, has been a 20 plus goal scorer every single year of his career, had 47 goals last year, 60 points in 63 games this season, definitely one of the top centers in the league and has been for a while. The Ottawa 67s, I'm going with Travis Konechny. For me, it came down to him, Sean Monahan, and Logan Couture, and maybe it is a little bit premature to say Travis Konechny is the best of the three, but that's who I'm going with, and maybe I'm a bit biased because he's one of my favorite players in the league. A breakout season with 61 points in 66 games, leading all members of the Philadelphia Flyers. I really think he showed superstar potential this season and is one of the biggest reasons why the Flyers were able to take that next step. Oh, and sound, the spot goes to goaltender Jordan Binnington, having a fantastic season with the Blues. Obviously, everybody knows what he did last season as a rookie, just a ridiculous run, and of course backstopped the St. Louis Blues to their first cup in franchise history. For me, this was a pretty easy decision, but I will give some honorable mentions to some other NHL players that came through this system, guys like Wayne Simmons, Mark Giordano, Josh Bailey, and Nick Suzuki. The spot for the Peterborough Petes goes to Eric Stahl. His only real competition here was his brother Jordan Stahl, but I think at this point in their careers, Eric is probably the better player. Eric played for the Peterborough Petes for 3 seasons before being taken second overall in the 2003 NHL draft by the Canes, and obviously has went on to have an amazing career, potentially a Hall of Famer one day. The Saginaw Spirit, I'm going with Vincent Trocheck, and sure, he has kind of struggled to find his offensive game since he put up 75 points in 82 games in the 2017-18 season with the Panthers, but even when he isn't putting up points, he still is a pretty solid two-way centerman. Some other notable active NHL players who play for the Spirit include TJ Brody, Brandon Saad, and Filip Hronek, who I'm obviously a pretty big fan of. The Sarnia Sting definitely has to be Nail Yakupov. All jokes aside, it's Steven Stamkos, one of the best NHL players over the past decade. He's the last player in the league to score 60 goals in a season, which is just insane. A 2-time Rocket Richard winner, over a point per game for his entire NHL career. Just an amazing player, and definitely my pick for the Sarnia Sting. The spot for the Sioux Greyhounds goes to Tony DeAngelo, defenseman for the New York Rangers, who blossomed into one of the best defensemen in the entire league this year, kind of out of nowhere. I mean, last year he played really well in 61 games, and a lot of people thought that he'd come into this year and have a strong season, but I don't think anyone saw this coming. And to think he only made $925K this year, he's going to be in for a massive raise this summer. And of course, some honorable mentions from the Greyhounds include guys like Jake Muzzin, Darnell Nurse, and Matt Murray. The Sudbury Wolves spot goes to Nick Foligno. There wasn't too many good options here for current active players. Other honorable mentions would be guys like Mark Stahl, Mike Smith, and Radek Faksa, but out of those guys, I'm going to give it to Nick Foligno, who is a little bit out of his prime, but still a really solid player for the Jackets and currently serving as their captain. I'm sure a lot of you guys would go with Mike Smith on this one, and honestly, that wouldn't be a bad pick either, as he's been okay for Edmonton this year. And lastly, the Spitfires goes to Taylor Hall. For me, this one came down between him, Ryan Ellis, and Mikhail Sergachev. And while Taylor Hall was injured a lot last season and didn't necessarily light it up offensively this year, I would still take him over the other two guys. I mean, he was the MVP of the league in the 2017-18 season for the Devils. Taylor Hall is set to become a UFA this summer. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him, but if he does sign with another team, that'll be his 3rd team in under a year, and for a player of his caliber, you don't really see that happen too often in the NHL. So that is my take on the best current NHL player from every team in the Ontario Hockey League. And like I said at the start of the video, this is going to be the beginning of a series, so in the coming days, look out for videos on the best player from every WHL team, and of course the best player from every QMJHL team as well. And if there are any other videos that you guys want to see me make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. I'm always open to hearing new ideas. Obviously now with the NHL being paused, there isn't too much to talk about in terms of current stuff. It really is just not looking good right now, especially for sports. Rumor has it that the NBA is looking to cancel their season in general, and that would just be insane considering like 3/4 of the regular season has already been played. That'd be devastating for a lot of the players, I'm sure. Hopefully the NHL can salvage somewhat of the season, maybe at least the playoffs, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if the rest of the season season is just canceled. But I'm going to continue making content no matter what happens. Thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel lately. I really do appreciate it. And if you guys did like this video and you're excited for the next 2 in the series, make sure to drop a like on it. And if you're new and you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button for some more NHL content. And I will see you guys all in the next video.